real opportunity, and it really puts Vegas back in that picture. There's some question marks with obviously Logan Thompson and Aiden Hill there, and Laurent Brossoit, and there's goaltending carousel. But I think it's really or will settle down. I think the more games down, the quick plays, maybe he can take the reins and jump into the playoffs with this team. So.
Well, we'll see because this past year, dropped quick stats have not been the best for LA. You can tell he's been slowing down, but we will see what can happen if the Vegas change can help him out. I know this year has been difficult for him, and going back to the game at hand, Brad, with the Oilers win 3-2 was a night in which big praise to Stuart Skinner over 30 saves tonight. Really great game. He looked in control. I know there was a few times where the Sabres were buzzing around his net. He looked calm. He looked composed and he looked much more stable than Jack Campbell was against Vegas a couple nights ago, Brad.
Yeah, and I really think I've been saying this for the last couple of weeks or month now, but I think Stewie's really cemented himself as the number one guy. I think that's the number one guy moving forward. Obviously, you want to give Jack his opportunities as a $5 million goaltender. I think and we've seen flashes of Jack Campbell. He went 9 games with he went 8-0-1. He went on that stretch. It looked like Jack was back, and then Jack hits that wall again. So, he hasn't really lived up to expectations in Edmonton. And let's be real. I mean, I think a lot of people that don't maybe follow the Oilers long term, or you got Leaf fans chirping that it was Kenny Holland's fault. Well, look, Kenny Holland went out, did his job, got a goaltender, thought this was going to be the guy. He can't control what Jack Campbell does between the pipes and when Jack Campbell steps on the ice. Now, we can only hope for the next 4 years moving forward that Jack Campbell is the Jack Campbell of advertised. I have faith in that. I think possibly Jack might rebound, get an opportunity in the playoffs if Stu falters. But right now, this is Stu's net, and he showed why tonight. He made some tremendous saves, as you mentioned, poised. And I think a lot of that, Avery, has a lot to do with kind of his new look defense in front of him. You got a little bit more stability back there. Matthias Ekholm, we talked about this, off air. Matthias Ekholm brings a lot more to the Edmonton Oilers than really just the naked eye. Stability, he's got physical presence, he's got that year or the years of playoff pedigree. He's a veteran defenseman, and this is a guy that can come in and calm everything down. He calms down Bouchard a bit, takes some minutes off of Darnell Nurse, takes some pressure off the defenseman, let Vinny Desharnais fall back into his spot, and really does a great job. And noticeably, I know it's only been a few games, Avery, but noticeably he's done a tremendous job back there. And in my eyes, there's a massive difference in that Oilers defense. So
No,
credit to the
yeah, no, of course. And as everybody knows, I said before, I was harsh on Ken Holland, and I give him credit. This is the kind of guy I said before. You had to at the trade deadline, you had to go and you had to either get Chikrin, Ekholm, Carlson. One of those guys you had to get. Brings in Ekholm. We know what he did in Nashville as one of their top D men. He comes to Edmonton, and watching him play tonight, watching him play against Toronto and against Winnipeg, you can tell, Brad, he's calmed things down. He's great two-way D man. He is jumped up in the play when needed. This is the kind of guy that you bring in to have a long playoff run, and this is the kind of guy who wants to be here long term. He said before, after the season, his family's gonna be in town. He's gonna have his family explore Edmonton in the summertime. His wife wants to come see Edmonton. Like, these are the kind of guys you want to bring into your market. Guys who not only want to win here, but guys who want to see this market and see what they're trying to build as a long term solution or as a long term location to play.
Yeah, and you mentioned, I mean, you and I mean, you obviously are very vocal, but you and I in the past few years have been very vocal about Kenny Holland. And you know what? I gotta give the guy credit where credit's due here. He went out and got a D-man. Did he pay a price? Yes. But that's also the price of doing business, I believe. Right? If you want to break it down and go through things more, me and you have talked about this for years. The window to win is open now. Connor McDavid, Lee Draisaitl in their primes now. So if we're really breaking things down, I'm seeing all the whining and complaining on Twitter. So you look at that window. Let's call that window. Let's say we got that 3-4 year window now. Okay, let's just call it a 3-4 year window. Well, I'm sorry, but Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are not waiting around for Reed Schaefer to make the team and
Nope.
possibly better. And let's be real. I believe he's still probably a good 2 to 3 years away, especially with this Oilers forward group.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a little bit of longevity. He can go get an opportunity with a rebuilding Nashville team. Maybe he's a little bit, a little bit closer there. That's fine. And then obviously we talked about this offensive explosive team. You got Connor, you got Leon, you got those guys. So you could really trade from a position of in a sense strength. Tyson Berry was I in my mind a fantastic Edmonton Oiler, both on and off the ice. Sometimes you got to give up assets to get good assets, and that's what he did. And obviously that first round pick also going back. You got to remember if they make the playoffs and make a deep run, that's 25 or lower. I'm okay giving that up, and especially you look at a team like the Tampa Bay Lightning and what they gave up in Tanner Janot. Yes, it's a big haul. Yes, it turns some heads, but again, breaking it down, they don't care about those draft picks 3, 4, 5 years from now. They want to win now, and they know their windows now.
Yes.
So really, in a sense, Kenny Holland kind of shoved his chips. We've been talking about trading first round picks the last couple of years, and guess what? He did it, and he went out and he got his guy.
No, of course he had to. And again, first round again. You want to win. You want to win now. It's gonna hurt. Of course, you gotta trade guys like Barry, Schaefer. That's what it takes to get assets like Matthias Ekholm. You got to be willing to part with first round picks. You got to be willing to part with roster players, prospects. Because I've said it before. I said it here. I said it on many platforms. You shouldn't be caring about 2027, 2028, 2029 right now. You got McDavid on pace for almost 160 points. Draisaitl are gonna have a 100-point year. Hyman gonna have a 30-goal year. Nugent-Hopkins gonna have a 100-point year. This is not the
Yeah,
time right now to worry about again like the what's Reed Schaefer gonna be like. Right now,
no.
to be quite frank, who cares? Who
Yeah,
cares about that?
and that's exactly it, right? And then you look back, right, and then you move over, and you go and get a guy like Nick Bukestad. Now, is that the flashy move? No, but it's a bottom six guy. But again, almost similar to Matisse at home, where now our defense is no smaller than 6'2", 6'3". Now you got a guy that is 6'6". He's a power forward, and you see a massive difference in that bottom six already the last couple of games. He's in there. He's physical. He's driving the net. He's got that little bit of defensive edge to him. Again, is he flashy? He's going to put up 100 points? No, but that's not what they need from a bottom six guy. And
Mm-hmm.
a third round pick again. They don't care about that third round pick. And Michael Kessler, look, all respect to Michael Kessering, and he was fantastic in Bakersfield. As the defense stood now, he was not good enough to make it in the lineup. He's probably not good enough to make it in the lineup the next year or two. So again, you're trading from a position of strength to get a guy that you need now to make that deep playoff run, because we've seen it against Colorado. We've seen it against Calgary last year. We've seen, you at points you need that big, that physical, that just that bulking presence, and that's what a guy like Mattias Ekholm's going to bring you, and that's what Nick Bukestad is going to bring you. And again, credit to Kenny Holland, what credit's due, because I think he did a fantastic job with what he had, especially the cap space with what he had. Moving out Jesse Puljujärvi and getting him a fresh start, we knew that needed to happen. But again, moving out Jesse Puljujärvi allowed him to acquire a guy like Mattias Ekholm and Nick Bukestad. I think today, as it stands, this team is slightly better, and this team has a real opportunity to come out of the West.
No, it does. You mentioned Nick Bukestad. I saw a comment in the chat here for Game Over how Bukestad from Eric Tanner. Bukestad was huge in the circle tonight, and that's what Nick Bukestad is going to bring for you. Depth scoring, great in the faceoff circle, great on the penalty kill. That's what you're going to need, and this is what this
Yeah,
team is going to get a huge boost in. And I think
for sure.
Bukestad, and Bukestad, I know you say Kessering over to Arizona, but that wasn't that big of. I know, yes, he is having big minutes. He's playing great in AHL, but
Yeah,
again, an AHL guy wasn't going to play here for quite some time, or
no,
someone who can help you immediately on the third line or fourth line like Nick Bukestad, you go get Bukestad all day, every day.
100%. And he and then you see what that line did tonight. He's playing with last game. He's playing with Derek Ryan. He's playing with them, and what that does, like you at home and Bumstead, they make the players around them better. They make them almost elevate themselves. I don't know if it's that new guy mentality in the lineup. You go, oh, I'm gonna get better for this guy, but it almost seems the team is getting better. And let's not forget. I mean, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are on a different planet. Connor McDavid, I never thought, like, I knew he was elite. I knew he was one of the best in the world, but this is a new level to Connor McDavid. I think this is the hungriest I've seen Connor McDavid. And if it's Connor McDavid's mission, he will carry, if he needs to, and we've seen it last year in the playoffs, he will carry this team to the playoffs and through the playoffs. And to me, right now, as it stands again, I'll bet on it. This is a Final Four hockey team if they keep rolling. Stuart Skinner, obviously, there's some aspects that need to play in here, but their defense is better. Their bottom six got slightly better, and of course, we know what to expect with their top six. And I think this is a team that when all things are clicking, this is a team to look out for in the Western Conference.
Yeah, and you mentioned McDavid, 2 goals again tonight in Edmonton's win, and he's at 50 goals now. And look at McDavid, my, and this is a guy who still doesn't. It is a guy who for a long time didn't consider himself to be a goal scorer. Now he felt that was not his game, and here he is on pace to threaten possibly 70 goals for a guy who for a long time didn't consider himself to be a goal scorer. And he's only 26 years old. We don't know what he could do at 27, 28, 29. It's scary to think that we might still have not found peak McDavid just yet. Well, that's a scary thing to say.
100%, and that's not scary for an Oilers fan. That's exciting. But if you're the rest of the league, I would absolutely be shaking in my boots. That to think at 24 points, 53 goals, it's incredible. And to think there might possibly even be another level to that. You know what? I was talking about this with somebody the other day, Avry. I don't think, and I know we talk about this all the time. We've seen it with Ovechkin, seen it with Crosby, seen it with these generational players. I have never seen a player on this type of trajectory. Connor McDavid we knew he was a goal scorer. We knew he was, that prolific passer, and he'd set up other players. And it was almost a joke the last couple of years that Connor needed to shoot more. Well, ladies and gentlemen, he listened, and he just put the entire league on notice. This guy, I am willing at this point with, what do we have, 18 games left. I wouldn't be surprised if he's knocking on the door of 70 goals at the end of the year. And I don't think, we've seen Matthews do it at 60, but who is coming right now in the next little bit to even threaten that? I mean, this guy is on a different planet. And to think if he breaks 70 this year, and to think there's another level even next year or the year after, I mean, what are we in for? This is a treat for the league. This guy should be on ESPN. This guy should be on TNT. There's Wednesday night hockey, Saturday night. None of these. The league needs to stop with these afternoon, 11 o'clock, 10:30 games on a Saturday in Columbus. This guy and this team right now needs to be prime time, 8 o'clock Mountain, 5 o'clock Mountain, whatever you got to do, because the rest of the world needs to watch 97 play.
Yeah, I know this game was an ESPN Plus game, so that was one thing fans in America got to see what McDavid was doing. And it is crazy because this is the hardest era of hockey when it comes to coaching, development, how goaltenders are, how this is by far this is the hardest era of hockey ever. And he is threatening 70 goals. It does not make a lick of sense. And watching him, even just watching him, Brad, during practices and morning skates, watching what he does, like it's tough. Like he does things on the ice, just practicing, messing around with the puck, that other players can't comprehend, like cannot do. I always make the joke on Twitter that the NHL isn't hard enough for him. Gotta find a harder league for McDavid to go play in because he makes NHL look like it's a game of shinny.
And at times he makes it look like he's playing on easy mode on NHL 23 out there. it's crazy. It's ridiculous. And I'll ask you this. I mean, do you think how close are we to watch them this year score 70? Can he do it? Will he do? I mean, and then what do you think and what do you have, Matt, for points at the end of the year? It's 100 and it's 170 a stretch. It's 100 and like what is the ceiling for Connor McDavid?
I don't know because I've tried to be rational with what he could do just in terms of hockey players. Like I remember for the hockey news this year, I called him having 122 points this year, thinking, okay, he had 121 last year, 122 this year. I didn't think he would threaten 160. Like I know one of our other writers, Tony Ferrari, he called the McDavid getting 134. And we kind of chuckled saying, there's no way he'll get to 134. And he might surpass 134, which is the highest prediction on the hockey news. So I'm gonna say I don't see him slowing down. I don't see him slowing down, taking games off. Like I could see him getting. I'll say 152, and for goals, I will say he taps out at 66 for goals.
Okay, so close, close to 70, but not quite. You know what? And I mean, just speaking of those numbers is crazy. I'd love to see him look. My bold prediction is one for me. It's 165 in points. I think he can do it. And I love round numbers, and I love for some reason. It's not that I hate the Leafs. It's not because we got to be non-biased here. It's not that I hate Matthews, but I'd love to see him in 70 just to say he got 10 more than Matthews, and maybe we put that conversation to bed for once and for all, and really because the rest of the league for years has said, well, Connor McDavid's good, but he's not this prolific goal scorer. He's not this this well-rounded player. Well, you know what? Like I just talked about, he put the rest of the league on notice this year, and he's starting to shoot the puck. And that shot that he developed, and that shot that he's got, we knew that he had. It's pretty good.
No, it is. It is amazing. But you know what? Austin Matthews, I wouldn't say Matthews is going down lightly. He still has a solid team in Toronto. So you could see Austin Matthews next year. Yeah. Next year could be a solid race rocker shot between those two, which I think, if you're an ESPN, if you're a TNT, you would love seeing next year, at least for the rocker shot being McDavid and Matthews in 23-24.
What are you buying into? I mean, I gotta put this to rest too. I see this all over the place. I mean, you look at Connor and Leon. We know their contracts are, we know they're coming up, and we talked about this for years. The window is now, and we've had these discussions locally. But is there do you see? Is it Connor McDavid and Ovechkin, and he stays with the Oilers for? Is this a 10+ year, or are we in a point in our sports world that Connor looks at it at the end of his 3 years left or whatever it is and says, you know what? Yeah, we got a cup. Maybe we got a cup. Maybe we didn't, but we came close in the Final Four and the Final Two, whatever it is. And he walks. I mean, because there's so much right now speculation, especially with the new building potentially in Arizona. Austin Matthews being a local product, potentially ending up in Arizona when his contract's up. I mean, is it realistic to have both Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid move on when their contracts are up?
I think both teams have taken a step forward. Both Edmonton and Toronto have to show these guys we're taking a major step forward. And that could be another return to, if you're Toronto, that can mean winning a couple of rounds. If you're Edmonton, that can mean getting back to the Western Conference Final or making it to a Cup Final. I feel for both guys, they need the organization to show them, hey, we are going forward. And it can't be a year of regression for either guy. I think if both teams take another step forward, I can see both guys staying in Toronto and Edmonton long term. It's all about moving forward and getting better than the year before for I think both Matthews and McDavid, Brad.
Let's talk, because I got out in the background here, and the Flames obviously are up 4-2 against Dallas, but I mean that's a team that they pushed Edmonton to obviously 6 games, and we know what happened there. But I mean, it's almost like Calgary is taking a kind of a step back in a regression. Is this kind of maybe a teardown time? The Flames are. We've seen they kind of went the all-in route with Huberdeau and Kadri, and and all these guys, and Uyghur obviously was the other piece in Florida. What's going on in Calgary?
It's funny when the year began, everybody was talking about, oh, the Flames will get their revenge on Edmonton this year. Calgary will finish above the Oilers. If they play again in a series, it'll be Calgary's time. But Calgary may not even make it. Calgary may not even get to have a rematch against Edmonton. And I said before on Game Over, Brad, I think that the tenure of Daryl Sutter is going to come to an end. I know ownership likes him, but this is the kind of coach where his style wears thin on players. It had an expiry date in Los Angeles. You can tell it's expiring now in Calgary again. These kind of old school coaches, the Sutters, the Mark Crawfords, the Mike Keenans, in this era of hockey, players don't want to hear that. Players don't want to deal with that for much longer. So I don't know how much longer he can last as a coach in Calgary. I think next year you're gonna get a new bench boss, and it should be Bruce Boudreau. That should be the guy fielding for Calgary next year.
Yeah, you talk about Bruce Boudreau and what happened in Vancouver and that whole thing. That is 100% the guy that I was going to even talk about too in Calgary is and if a guy can turn around the team, it's that guy. He seems like a player's coach. He was well liked in Vancouver. You've seen what the fans did with him and the players and the emotion when he got let go. I mean, you see both sides obviously, but it was tough to see Bruce go. And for me, 100%, that's the guy I would want if I'm Calgary. Or maybe they look, internally. Maybe there's an assistant there or something there that Brad Treliving potentially likes. Their AHL coach in Stockton potentially. So I mean, there's a lot of different things they could do. But I guess one other name somebody brought up to me the other day, and you talk about Ken Holland and defenseman. We looked at, you mentioned the Chikrins who ended up at Ottawa and Matthias Ekholm who ultimately ended up in Edmonton. But one guy that didn't move was Erik Karlsson.
No.
Is that a guy, if you're Ken Holland in the offseason, is that in your view, I would love to see Erik Karlsson still in Edmonton. You all of a sudden you add, and maybe a Bouchard goes the other way, and obviously a package, but you look at an Erik Karlsson with a Matthias Ekholm, with a Darnell Nurse, and with Vinny Desharnais potentially taking a step, Broberg taking a step, CC obviously there, maybe there's something there in terms of that, but all of a sudden you add an Erik Karlsson, and this defense core becomes absolutely scary. What do you think? Am I crazy? Am I dreaming, or is this in your mind a real possibility?
I think this team should definitely still be interested in finding a way to get Erik Karlsson if it's now a offseason move. I still firmly believe it should have been a mid-season move because San Jose is in peak teardown. I don't know why the Sharks are keeping that asset when they're not going to be good for quite some time. Mike
Yeah,
Greer should have made a move, and I know the money wouldn't. I know the money is tough to have worked, but I was a
sure.
big advocate in a 3-team deal, getting creative. That's how you make these kind of deals work, and it could happen this offseason. But I think Erik Karlsson is someone with your window to win still open. I think that's a guy you should definitely still add. He's a guy who McDavid and Draisaitl wanted. He's still very great offensively. He's a strong puck mover. This is the kind of guy who you definitely do add. I know the contract isn't the best, but again, if you can find a way to get the Sharks decent salary or get their team involved, bringing him
Yeah,
in for next year as a guy, if you don't win this year, to try and bring him in to win next year. You're
sure.
this is still the prime of your young guys. You still have also to Draisaitl. You still have Hyman. You still have Nugent-Hopkins. Go for it.
Yeah.
See what you can do in the offseason because I definitely think you should not be turning the page on. You should find a way to bring him in for next year to boost that D even more so come next season.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, another guy that's taken a real step forward even in the last couple months is Warren Fogle. He's really taken on that bottom six kind of role, kind of top nine. He's kind of up and down the lineup, but I've liked his game the last month and a half, 2 months, and I thought he's been kind of turning it around as well because he was in trade talks, before the deadline as well, and he's kind of really kind of seemed to fall into his own, which has been good.
Yeah, well, he had no choice to step up. Like he's had no choice but to get better because Warren
Yeah,
Fogel's game earlier this year was so inconsistent. I know he's on a heater right now, but he had no choice. this is a guy who was looking at potentially, a trade waiver. It's like if his game did not improve, he was not going to be here for much longer. So I do like seeing Vogel's game step up. Also, to Derek Ryan, I've liked what Derek Ryan has done this year.
Yeah.
11 goals in the season. He's been one of the better depth adds in recent memory for this franchise. He's been one of the better depth forwards for what he's brought to his team over his 2 years in Edmonton, Brad.
Well, you think Devin Shore, right? Even in the last, couple of weeks for Devin Shore, he's kind of, had that fire under his butt too. He's been sent down, sent up, sent down, and now, that's kind of another guy that's had no choice but to step up or sit down type thing, and he's kind of found a nice little role the last little bit as well.
No, exactly. I will see this team respond again when Evander Kane returns from his injury. We'll see how the forward core respond. But I think Edmonton right now, and now before we go wrap things up here, a couple more things. Just want to get your thoughts, Brad. What are your thoughts, Brad, in the last 2 games of this road trip where Edmonton will be playing the Boston Bruins and then wrapping up the road trip in Toronto?
Yeah, well, look, you know what? I for one liked the game they played against Boston Edmonton. I thought they played them hard. I thought it was a good hockey game. Obviously, the goal, the third Boston goal from his stomach was, I mean, some would call it a fluke goal, some call it a nice, goal. It happens. I feel for Stu, but it might. Let's be real. This team's on a heater, and that being Boston. This is the best team in the National Hockey League. If you're playing this team at all in the Eastern Division or Eastern Conference in the playoffs, I am scared. This is a team that found a way to add still. They added a Tyler Bertuzzi. They walked up David Pastrnak. They went out, they added the pieces of Dmitry Orlov.
Mm-hmm.
Hathaway, who, even at Garnet Hathaway, I would have targeted 5 Edmonton. I love that grittiness, that sandbag, especially going into the playoffs. You kind of need that. But obviously, Evander Kane coming back, I think will provide that. And this team might even, all the pieces now fit together with Evander Kane back. This might truly be a complete hockey team. And I really think they'll play Boston the same way. They should. I'd like them to at least get a point. Obviously, 2 points are nice. I think it'll be a much different outcome. This team is a little bit better now since the deadline, obviously, but so is Boston. So I think a great matchup. In Toronto, I mean, we've seen for the first time in 10 matchups they beat the Leafs at home in Edmonton. I thought Edmonton played a great hockey game. Obviously, the debut of Matthias Ekholm, I thought he played well. Goaltending was well. I'm not sure now if I'm Edmonton. I'm not sure. Maybe you give the net to Jack Campbell that night to, obviously his former team. Playing his former team. Maybe some nostalgic things. Depending how Stewart plays, he played well tonight. Give him the rain against Boston again. Maybe some revenge there. Maybe they find a way to win. And I really like the trajectory this team's on right now. And they've shown at times and at big points in the year that they can play with these big teams. And that has got to give you hope and promise going into the playoffs, especially you're going to have to play a Colorado. You're going to have to, potentially play a Vegas or Seattle. So I'm definitely looking forward to the last 2 of this road trip, and especially the final stretch of 18 games or so. With we'll see what Edmonton's truly made of the last month going into the playoffs, and what kind of momentum that they can build now that their team really solidified. Kane coming back, they got their D-man in Ekholm, steady things down. We'll see how they look in the playoffs.
No, exactly. We definitely will see it. Before I let you go, Brad, I'll let you want to plug anything you're up to, and I'll let you plug your social media. And of course, for those of you who don't know, Brad has been a big advocate for disabilities in Alberta, Edmonton, and making Edmonton more accessible. Because again, being around Brad, going to school with him, being his co-host on different shows like the Brian Avery Hour, you learn how tough it can be for someone who lives with cerebral palsy, who's in a wheelchair. That getting, there's certain things you don't see, you see more often now. How a lot of restaurants, buildings aren't able to handle wheelchair and stuff. So let's talk a little about what you've been doing, Brad, to try to make Edmonton more accessible and as a whole.
Yeah, and your support's been awesome. And again, thank you Thank you so much for what you do and sharing everything. Obviously, you can find me on Twitter and Broadcaster Brad, and Instagram at Brad Inspires, and Facebook on Brad Bartko, or our disability page, disability.abd, or Disability Accessible by Design, if you're looking for the full thing. And it's really just bringing awareness and education to governments and policies and schools and restaurants. And we started in hospitality. We helped a good handful here in Edmonton. Avry, we did. You were along for the ride with the Stingers, and and we're working on some elk stuff, and the Oilers have been a huge support, and obviously our good friend Gene Principe, and just now getting involved with governments and making sure that they're maybe pushing some policies forward, and to understand that we're all going to become disabled in some way, shape, or form, whether that's old age, accident, permanently, short term, whatever that may be, and really getting the world to think proactively instead of what we normally think about is reactively, and really starting to build a better world for hopefully everybody as we continue to move forward and plow forward. I think I'm looking forward to what's next.
No, good stuff, good stuff. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Brad. It's a great work you're doing to make Edmonton and Canada as a whole more accessible. And anyways, those of you who anyways, we're gonna wrap things up here on Game Over Edmonton. As always, if you like the content, please like, subscribe, and comment to the Game Over channel, SDPN. Support all the hosts coast to coast from Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal, Winnipeg. We love doing this. Love bringing people on to chat and talk hockey after all these different games. I'll be back again to talk about the Oilers-Bruins game on Thursday, and then I'll be back again on Saturday night to recap Edmonton and Toronto. For Brad Bartko, I'm Avry Lewis McDougall. I am out. We'll talk to you guys again on Thursday. Have a good night. Later.
Game over! Powered by Sports